yesterday. Uh, let's take it, Commissioner, if we could, from the beginning of the game. To me, I mean, obviously, that's a fearsome defense that the Eagles have, and it's also a dangerous offense. But I thought we were handling the offense pretty well, actually. I thought our defense really showed up. And
Yeah,
then
we
there
were doing
was,
the thing we were normally doing. Like, it's not the best positions. It's not the best situation. Like, we were going through a lot in the first quarter. Despite the injury and despite whatever was going on, it was still a 7-0 game. And it was kind of over before it even started. I know we were talking last week. It'll be up to the quarterbacks, and it actually did. It was up to both of the quarterbacks, which Jalen Hurts didn't have to do much because we just didn't have a quarterback back there.
well, and this is what you're talking about. And what you're seeing on screen, if you're watching on YouTube, is you're seeing the injury to Purdy. Now, what I was going to get to before you even get to the injury to Purdy, although you'll help me with the timeline, it was such a, I mean, it was almost like those biblical plagues, like with just one hits after another. Oh, you don't, you're not a believer. Here you go. Let me hit you with this. Now I'm going to hit you with this. Now I'm going to take out your quarterback. Now I'm going to take out your fill-in quarterback. Now I'm going to hit you with a penalty that's not legit. Now I'm going to give them a
Now
touchdown
Nick
or so.
Bosa's going to get tripped up on the sideline and get injured.
I
Now
mean,
Fred Warner's going to be a little injured at some
thank you.
point.
Key injuries on offense and defense, and to me, a coaching error of a massive proportion when you don't challenge the long pass that was incomplete. I didn't see it was incomplete because the TV replay didn't show you it was incomplete, but I did see one thing. I saw the receiver leap to his feet and go like this, huddle up real quick. He's telling you he didn't catch it. What I'm screaming in the room. I'm jumping up and down. Challenge, challenge, challenge. And yet we didn't challenge, Albert. I thought that was an early turning point in that game.
Yeah, it definitely was, because if you think of the momentum, you think of it's a fourth down, it's a huge play that'll get the crowd going, it'll get the players going, and it's so early in the game. I don't want to say it lost us a game because there's a lot of factors against that. No quarterback, like you said. The referees, there's like 14 Eagles on the field every play yesterday.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was we didn't need that to happen. And this is like the track record of Mike Shanahan is he wins a lot of games, but he never wins the big games. So if you even go back to the 28-3 loss, the historic Super Bowl loss that the Falcons went through, Mike Shanahan was not Mike Kyle Shanahan was
Yeah.
the offensive coordinator orchestrating the offense, who scored all those points but couldn't score against a historic like Patriots win. And then we blew a couple 10-point leads in the playoffs already. And that's just the big picture, or the big cloud over Kyle Shanahan. He could win a lot of games, but just not the big one. And
Well, now let me be fair to Kyle Shanahan, and then we can dump on him again in a second. But let me be fair. First of all, as I say, I mean, that missing that challenge was massive because you need on the road in Philadelphia, particularly, to take that crowd out of the game. And as Albert says, that would have done it. But he has kept a Super Bowl course going with this team with an unknown quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, Purdy. You had to surround him with enough weapons. Now you have to have those weapons, but the acquisition of McCaffrey was huge, and you had enough weapons both on offense and defense to minimize the loss of Trey Lance, Garoppolo, and then allow Purdy to excel in that scheme. I'll give Shanahan credit for that. I'll, as an aside, say, and Albert, you can explain this to everybody, the NFL will only let you keep so many quarterbacks. Isn't that right? We couldn't have 4 quarterbacks sitting on the bench. You're not allowed to have that.
no, well, even in the roster construction, it'll be hard to do that. So you have to utilize the practice squad, which is getting really specific. And the practice squad is completely open. Like, anybody could sign those quarterbacks. So even if you did have extra quarterbacks, other teams could poach them from you. And it's just hard. You can't even have a roster with 4 quarterbacks. It's just tough because you need players on special teams. You're limited to 53 players.
I think the NFL has to reconsider this, and I think the NFL needs to reconsider a lot of things. I kind of view the NFL the way we view the U.S. government. I love it. I love the United States of America. I love America. but I would open up the hood on a lot of stuff in America. The Electoral College, what areas are states. I'm sitting in a place, Washington, D.C., that should have statehood, but they never will because of politics. The NFL, I love the NFL, but there are a lot of problems with it, and that was one of them. Also, I felt as though that, don't they do, Albert, that instant review on the incomplete pass at the beginning? But they didn't do it in that case. That was one of the situations in which I felt the officiating let down the game. You know, where poor officiating gets in the way of a good game.
Yeah, and they probably should have looked at it, but they committed to a call so early, and it was like Kyle didn't have enough time to think or make a decision. And I know I was kind of bashing on Kyle, but I do love Kyle Shanahan. I think he's a great coach. I think if you look at the NFL, if we were to let go of Kyle Shanahan, he would be instantly hired. And if that's the case, you probably shouldn't fire the coach, because in the NFL, everybody's desperate for wins, desperate to make it to the playoffs, and we're so close, but you can't. We need we literally need a quarterback. So it's just really tough.
It's a quarterback league. Associate producer of this program, Calvin Wong, says the replay referee didn't do his job either. Yeah, certainly on that play. Absolutely, this expedited review, which normally is in place, for whatever reason, got into the outfield on what was a critical fourth down play. Pretty, but as I say, referees are going to blow calls. It's going to happen. That's why there are challenges. And why you hang on to the challenge flag when there is that critical play and it is in the first half, so you're losing a timeout, and who cares? It's in the first half. Didn't make any sense to me. So that is on Kyle Shanahan.
And then the rest of the game, you just felt like it was like not a normal uphill battle. It was like you had to beat the Eagles and you had to beat the refs at the same time, because we tied the game and the Eagles were driving, and the referees had extended the drive 3 or 4 times.
You're talking the flags, Eagles were driving, yes.
Flags, really right. Ticky-tack calls. A couple of them were real, but the others were just gifts, first down gifts, and then they scored, and then the fumble, and then it was getting really, it was really bad.
This on John Watson's comment in the chat room. You can text in the chat. One thing I think Shanahan needs to do is figure out how to protect the quarterback more. So let me speak to that. Commissioner, you will give me that trying to block Riddick with a tight end one-on-one, which is essentially what was happening, right? I mean, this guy's isn't he the NFL sack leader or number 2 in sacks in the NFL? And
he's one of the prolific sack getters in the league. And our tight ends are pretty good at blocking, but it's just not their job. They have more to do. So,
I mean, that really was the thing that knocked Purdy out of the game. So you can draw a direct line between that and Purdy's removal from the game. And then Josh Johnson comes in, as you say, he's this guy who's been kicked around the league. And until, 2 delay of games and a fumbled snap that hit him in the hands, I mean, I just felt as though it was too big a task. And of course, ultimately it didn't matter. Although I didn't think he did badly. I actually thought, well, we might actually be able to make it, as I say. And then once he went down, I mean, it's just, that's what
it's like the final 4 teams in the playoffs, the 4 best quarterbacks essentially in the league that are still in it. And you think Josh Johnson's going to lead a win against a dynamic team like the Eagles, it's hard to put we were trying to convince ourselves Mr. Irrelevant could do it, and he was proving he could do it.
I still think Purdy was the better quarterback in that game. And now here's why I tell you this. I really believe, and this is somewhat controversial. I mean, you're going to say, "Oh, Mark, you're just a homer for the Niners," and maybe that's true, But hear me out. Jalen Hurts was not playing like Jalen Hurts at 100%. He wasn't playing like he was at the beginning of the season. He wasn't like Jalen Hurts was injured. Okay, and there's no question about it. Look at his stats on the day. I mean, I think he had
like 15 completions, for barely 150 yards.
And one of those completions, some of that yardage was on a ball that wasn't even caught. It was ruled a completion, but it wasn't. It was like a 60-yard pass. It didn't even exist. So I thought that the healthy Brock Purdy, which is what he was before he was knocked out of the game, was actually, even though he doesn't have the shimmer, he doesn't have the gloss, And honestly, if both are 100%, he's not as good as Jalen Hurts. Given the diminished nature of Jalen Hurts, I actually thought Purdy could run with him. He could, but but to your point, Albert, and then I'll let you speak. I felt as though they're four of the best teams in football. They're going to be two terrific games, and had we not seen the long arm of fate enter our game with help from the officials, and by the way, crappy officiating in both games. The AFC game was awfully officiated. I can give you examples of that as well. The Bengals, to me, were robbed. And I'm not a Bengals fan. I'm just, I'd like, if you're going to call roughing in one case, you have to call roughing in the other case, But I felt as though we were cheated of those two great showdowns. In the case of the Niners, by fate and a little bit of the officials. And in the case of the late game, the Chiefs-Bengals game, it was the officials, to me, that cheated us out of a fair contest. That game should have gone to overtime, and I don't know who was going to win.
I'm surprised it didn't go to overtime. I felt like the NFL would want to kind of like milk the momentum of a pretty good game up to the point, but I think comparing the games to last season it was just such a great playoffs, even though that we also ended up short there. It's just this season in general has felt very not as enjoyable. I don't know. Maybe it's all the injuries that's beating me down for the Niners, but this year has been kind of weird, and I just want to see what we're gonna next year. I think we're gonna Jimmy. Thank you for your service again, and then we're gonna have Brock Purdy and Trey Lance kind of had the quarterback competition on paper, but I think this is actually Brock Purdy's job.
Well, can I ask a question?
Yes, please, McAllister.
What was up with this fight?
The number 42 would not let go of Deebo Samuel, and it was like a scrum. And obviously, we're all frustrated, but all he had to do was let go. He was holding on to him for a pretty long time, and Trent Williams took matters into his own hands. He's an all-pro left tackle that we have, and probably one of the biggest, scariest guys in the NFL. So you see, after that clip happened, everybody's backing away from him.
Okay,
so that was our only win last night.
I'm seeing this. These are tweets in defense of Shanahan. I'm not hearing any Kyle Shanahan loses the big game nonsense. You can't play with no quarterback. Brock was clearly hurt, and Josh Johnson was concussed. The defense had way too many penalties. It wasn't Kyle. He's coach of the year, in my view.
No, I agree. So, but the big game situation is that one instant of not throwing the challenge flag, and
I agree. I agree.
That happened in a big game, and I'm not saying that he can't coach the rest of the game. It's just those pivotal moments, those Jimmy G throwing an interception, or the play calls after having a 10-point lead against the Chiefs, where we kind of just hope that the Chiefs didn't score, didn't work out. So, I think that's what we're pointing out too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that was a game-changing moment, the challenge, and that's clearly at the feet of the head coach. Your thoughts? Welcome. We can revisit it. Look, it's tough. We're Niners fans, and this was a tough loss for us. And let me just say, it was tough because we felt as though we had the team, but to see them go down to injury, and it was like just one page after another. It was, as I say, it was some kind of biblical plague, 1 minute after another. And at some point,
you're like telling yourself, of course that happens. Yeah. Of course, this happens right after. And this season did seem like a storybook season. We were going into the season with a new car, a new toy. We had the new quarterback, and then he gets injured, and we bring in the guy we're trying to outcast. This good-looking guy who's been beaten down by injuries. He comes back in with no looking at the playbook, has to expedite his preparation to help us out. Then we need him the most. He gets injured, and then we trade for a all-pro running back to retool. So he's the new guy in town, and then Jimmy gets injured, and then we have the literal last draft pick to take over the team to try to win us this season. And it seems storybook, but it wasn't a happy ending.
I'll say one last thing, as long as we're talking about it. I mentioned that, opening the hood up on the NFL as an NFL fan, and you can't expect teams to maintain the same roster size they've always had and still extend the season the way you've done. You've added these games so much more in the way of physical damage to the players that are playing football. Now I know NFL, you don't really care about what happens. I know you do a lot of stuff when it comes to concussion, but the reality is this is a sport that, and we saw it literally this season, you can die on any play. I mean, there is a breadth of violence that's permitted on the field that's insanely broad.
Yeah.
That said, when you watch football, you see that these guys are being brutalized week after week, and you add the number of weeks of brutalization, if that's a word. And so the notion somehow that you maintain this slim roster, look at the guys who are making the Super Bowl. Mahomes is hurt, okay? Jalen Hurts is hurt. You're not getting the best because there's no time for guys to heal up. I think you have to change certain things in the structure of the rosters, and particularly as it relates to this super long season in the NFL.
Yeah, as long as they add more games, you have to compensate. It makes no sense. Like they're getting faster, they're getting stronger, they're getting bigger. It's not, we're not slowing down anytime soon, and they should be doing something about it. But you know what they say, Mark. It's the playoffs, so you just got to play through it. It's what happens. It's just a classic NFL. But it's really robbing us from entertainment, I feel like, because we're not getting what we should. We're just getting it on paper, but when we're watching the games, it's not what we think it's going to be.
What the commissioner's saying is exactly right. You're not getting. It's not that you won't get a game. You'll get it, but you could get a terrific game with players at 100%. I mean, to see Jalen Hurts electrify. This is a guy, and by the way, the Niners handled, I thought, the run-pass option very well, and that's why I was so impressed with the defense early on. I know we fell behind, but we fell behind in a bogus play that wasn't even, but let's give them that play. I still thought the defense was playing very well and handling the Eagles' offense quite effectively. Look, that was a fourth down play, that illegitimate long pass. So they were forcing them into a couple of pretty tough spots.
Yeah, we got them to fourth down a couple of times, and they just, had the cojones to just go for it every single time, and knowing that we just couldn't stop it. And the NFL does need to change that, pushing the quarterback in. I think the teams have been doing it a little too much. I think we're going to see a change there. Well,
it's funny you say that, Commissioner, because I will tell you this: the Niners are really good at that. I mean, I think they're one of the best teams in football at pushing the quarterback ahead.
Yeah,
you agree?
I agree, but I think it's what can you do as a defense? They're just pushing. You have a quarterback, and you just have some big guys behind him pushing him across the first down line.
This is a great comment. I don't know if you put it up there already, Kim. I know you've been putting some comments up, but Mark, it's like a game of Survivor. Whoever's healthy in the end gets to play in the playoffs. It's really true. On some level, there's a lot of truth to that. Go ahead, Kim.
No, I have a question and a comment. First of all, that injury that Purdy received with the arm going back like that, they think it's a UCL injury, and that requires Tommy John surgery if that's the case. And that's going to be, that means he's out for a while. UCL is ulnar collateral ligament. If it's a complete tear, he'd be facing Tommy John surgery and months-long recovery. So I guess the question is, a guy like Purdy, who is now hurt, but who has done so much this season and kind of given so much hope to 49ers fans, is he the guy next season, or who's the quarterback next season? Is it somebody completely new that we've never seen before? Are all these injured guys now kicked to the curb? What happens?
Well, it's gonna be Brock Purdy or Trey Lance. Well, Tommy John is a very I don't want to say it's prevalent. It's a frequent injury for a lot of pitchers in baseball, and they end up coming back throwing harder and more confident. So, and the healing process is actually getting quicker. Like, it's not a year; it's more 9 months. It depends on the situation, and well, hopefully he could be back in time. But then him and Trey Lance will probably duke it out next season because we have not a lot of money invested in the quarterbacks, and they're both on rookie deals, which is a good thing. But we'll probably run with those two, and probably a journeyman practice squad third quarterback. Just hoping that we don't have to play the same dance of figuring out who our third and fourth quarterback is next season.
There's never been anything like this.
Well, I think that the question ultimately becomes, just in general, Niners fans and to football fans generally, if you look at the teams that make it to the Super Bowl, they are all quarterback-centric teams. You need the defense, and I think the Chiefs' defense, for example, is much better. It's sort of much better than is advertised because Mahomes is sort of the star of that team, and so the defense is maybe overlooked, or some of their defensive assets. But if you look at the Bengals, also a great defense. I mean, really great defense too. Maybe with a couple more holes in the secondary, but anyway, it was Burrow who gets all the talk, Joe Burrow. So you've got Patrick Mahomes, Burrow. Those are the quarterbacks. It's a league of the Jalen Hurtses of the world, and even Garoppolo had his own shimmer to him, you know. And then Purdy, of course, was the great Cinderella story. But when I talk about the league and quarterbacks and coming back from Tommy John and next season, one of those guys, and I think Albert's right, it'll start as Purdy, and then we'll see how it shakes out. We'll have to step up and, you know, be the standout performer. But we don't have a marquee quarterback in either one, although Lance was scheduled to be the marquee quarterback. I don't know if he has got the stuff or not. Now I think the jury's out.
I love this text from Karen D. Did you see Steve Young's tweet? She writes, he said he's ready to suit up. He's waiting in the parking lot.
Steve Young actually had the style of play that's very much the style of play now. Mobile quarterback, able to gain yards on the ground, can take advantage of a defense that leaves him an opening, and can also just heave the ball. I mean, tremendous passer as well. Don't you think, Commissioner?
Yeah, and he was awkward for the secondaries. He was a lefty, so you see him running out there. It's not your conventional, you're used to a right-handed quarterback. Yeah. But unfortunately, we remember how his career ended. I don't think he would survive a couple plays in this NFL.
No, we would, you know.
I'm sure the NFL disabilities sector wouldn't be happy with him.
Yeah, Steve Young couldn't run the length of the field without probably ending up in the ER. You know what I mean? There was something would be blew out his knee, whatever.
His runs were electric. I always remember that run where he just was scrambling through a whole defense, and he's literally about to fall over before he gets into the end zone, and he finally makes it in.
Well, I'm going to adjourn this court of football unless I see anything in the chat that demands immediate attention. Does San Francisco go after Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady? Both are from Northern California. This is actually, while they're older quarterbacks, not a unreasonable question to ask. Rodgers is probably the more viable choice, might be the way to put it. Although Brady, I've got to give Brady some credit for being durable. You know, I mean, he didn't get it. Now, he was not so great in that last playoff game, but
yeah, but he didn't have anything really around him, and this is the first time we've even ever seen Brady with no supporting cast, and it was it was sad. That was the word I thought of when I saw Brady. It was sad, and it'll be nice to have either of those, but there's been rumors about both of them going to our teams. Well, Aaron Rodgers since the draft in 2005, and then last season there were some murmurs, and then Brady obviously would be a great landing point for him. If he's looking at it on paper, he's like, wow, this is a great defense. He has a good running back. We have great wide receivers. Let me just go in there and mercenary my way for another Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's true. Somebody said, was it Karen who said no more old dudes?
Yeah, no more old dudes.
Well, yeah. As someone who's a perennial defender of all old dudes, and I mean dudes and dudettes, I'm a big love my old people.
If we had a room of Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Jimmy Garoppolo, that'll get somebody tweeted or somebody texted it or chatted in that Jimmy G is the reason why the wives are watching now. Well, imagine that
Joe Box
room.
Yeah,
imagine that quarterback room with that three-headed monster. That'll be insane.
That's very funny. Just the rotating.
Not wrong.
Yeah, rotating handsome. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just actually having the Bachelor to decide the quarterback.
All right, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to adjourn the court of Monday morning quarterbacking, but you're all still welcome to throw in on it. I mean, those are some thoughts on a game that was heartbreaking, mostly because I felt we didn't really get a chance to ever really play, you know. And when we were playing, which was very early on, I thought we played well. and then the hand of fate. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell, you'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.